welcome to the Teaching Our Kids podcast, a place for teachers, parents, and everyone in between to learn about how kids learn. And hello, everyone. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Ashton, and way back before I had kids, I was a teacher. I went to school for early childhood education. I taught for 4 years in public school system, and then when my kids were born, I decided to stay at home. My curiosity for child development and learning never stopped, so I continue to research and create new ways to support parents to teach their kids. And my kids are in public school, and they are 7 and 10. So that's me. And how about you two introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, honey.
My name is Becki, and Becki Landers, and I am mom of 3. We have 3 little ones. I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry for 10-ish years, but last year I, we'll call it, had the privilege of being laid off, and there was always something inside of me that wanted to stay home, so we were given the opportunity to do that, and I've been home now since September 1st with all 3 kiddos who are 8, 6, and 1, and I'm now in charge of homeschooling.
Yes.
Yeah. Your turn.
And I'm Eric Landers, and also the father of said children. And we homeschool our children, as Becki mentioned. We unschool them, and I'll just give a brief history of that. When Tegan, who was our oldest, 8 years old, was becoming school age, probably 2 to 3 years old, and I knew things were coming, I started really looking into education. What are we going to do for our children when it's time for them to go to school? And what happened from there is many years of just trying to figure it out, looking at private schools and public schools and other options, and what are the options and what is best, and then taking a lot of those findings to Becki and discussing it, and that is how we ended up on the unschooling path.
And I just want to tell you, like, so many people don't put so much thought into that. So it's impressive. Like, they just go with what their lifestyle like dictates. And it's cool that you have the privilege and the ability to do it for them too, because I think some people, I don't know. I don't want to say they don't have it, but they just don't make it for themselves sometimes. I don't know. But it's awesome that you can do that. And I've thought about doing it, but since I taught in public school, and that's where we are right now. They're in school and they're doing well. So, all right.
Good.
Before we get more.
Can you say more about what grades the kids are in?
Yes, thank you. Did I? I said their ages. Lily is in 2nd grade and Harry is in, 4th grade. 2nd grade and 4th grade. Yes. So, and we'll get more into like why we picked what we picked and all that stuff later on. But the next thing I really want to talk about is just like, what is public schooling and what is unschooling? Like, what we think of it, like what society thinks of it, maybe what our friends and family kind of think of it, which is always fun because everybody has their opinions. So, and I'll start with public school because everybody is more familiar with that. It's the main, usually normal or typical choice for people is public school, or I guess I don't want to say private school, but just like normal
traditional
sending
school?
traditional. That's the word.
Oh no.
Here we go. Okay, so just a definition of like society and public schools. I did a little looking up, and it says, someone wrote an article that said most Americans think public schooling is just okay. Like average, there's nothing amazing about it. Like everybody's not clamoring to send their kids there, but it's convenient and it gets the job done with a lot of equality. I sometimes think it lacks equity. We'll go into that later anyway. And it's government funded and government controlled, so there's all that fun stuff too. That's basically like the societal thought on it. Do you want to have anything else to add about what you think society thinks about public schools?
I would say that I think it's just the go-to, right?
Right.
It's what it's the immediate, free, available, what's easiest for education for our children. It's
Hmm.
really become traditional school is, it's traditional. It's the standard for education in America, at
Yep.
least.
So my other thing was like what my friends and family think of public schooling. That's the next one. And I think most of them think it's like sort of the expectation your kids are going to go to public school. Most kids do it. Mine seem to be doing well, so it's cool. But I think something they don't always see is the extra that we do as parents, that I take like the um to add to what they get at school, or to if something is taught and we're like, we put in the work to help it. And I do a lot of that. I think not all parents do. Like I was talking about you with the consideration of where to pick. We did a lot to pick where we lived so that would be at a certain public school and not at others.
Oh
And
wow! So you chose your home
yes,
based
based
on
on
what
school. Yes.
you took it
Yes.
very seriously then.
Yes. So yeah, it's not just like, oh, that's where they're going. We still like did a lot of consideration about it. So,
Hmm.
um, and that's something, not everybody always thinks about. And then let's see. So what I think of public school. So I taught in it for 4 years in Baltimore City, and I enjoyed it. And my kids have basically been in public school for, let's see, Harry's in fourth grade, so about 5 years, because I had him in it in kindergarten too. And they do well, and I love their elementary school. But I can see its weaknesses because sometimes Harry's not always challenged. And then Lily, she's on the younger side. She just makes the cutoff because her birthday's in August. So it was harder for her to meet their expectations because she was still younger. And I'm
Good.
like, okay, when you're ready, I don't push it, but it was a little bit harder for her in the beginning. We're It's second grade now. She's there, but it was not last year. And COVID didn't help that either. That's a whole nother topic. But
Yeah.
so
Right.
yeah. So, and then my other thing is I think there's a missing element of equity with the kids, like giving them each what they need where they need it. Like they make it the same for everybody, but you know, sometimes public schools definitely fall short on that. 100%.
Yeah, and
So,
I think I mean, that's a separate topic in
oh
itself,
yeah,
but just
it
because
really is.
of the funding of the government control
Uh-huh.
and the the teacher student ratio and not really having the space at all times or ability to do that. Um, but also, the belief that uh, the traditional curriculum and of grades where we group children
Mhm.
ages is, that's all of that is in line with the availability of equity in traditional schooling system.
Right. So did you want to add anything else into that? Like what you guys think of it? Obviously you didn't pick it as your choice. I mean, you don't have to get too deep into why you didn't pick it, but if you want to
I'm gonna sorry, she's playing with the glasses.
I
Eric,
love it. What do
I
you think,
think
Eric?
that um, I think that public schools are the go-to, the easiest, the
Uh-huh.
path of least resistance.
Yeah,
And that's why most people use them.
pick it, yeah.
They see them as the standard, and not the gold standard or the
Right.
opposite of that or whatever, but
Just
it's just
yeah.
the standard. That's all.
Mhm.
This is what we do. Our children get turn 5, they go to kindergarten. It's
Mhm.
just that's just what you do. They go to school where we live, and it's easy. And because of the way our society is set up, many, many, many families have dual working parents, and
Yes.
so they need childcare during the day to work. And again, path of least resistance, and
Right.
so it's just I think that's why it's traditional, because it's the
Yes.
easy to do.
For sure.
I think, just not to get too deep into it, Eric, one of the reasons that Eric really got into researching schooling options outside of traditional for us was really because of his experience in school.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And and he wanted, to see if there was anything different out there.
Yes.
And that's really what kind of led us to unschooling, because we are fortunate enough to have the ability
Right.
to homeschool, whereas many families can't, like he mentioned, because both parents are working. He was working from home partially with his cleaning company.
Oh, yeah. So you're able to do it.
Right, and
Oh.
wanting to prevent his his kids from experiencing what he experienced, I think was just really considerate and like a great quality of a dad, right? To kind
Yes.
of
If every parent put as much effort into thinking about the choices you're making for your family, it would be a magical world, I think. I mean, I try to do it. We definitely try. Like I said, we picked where to live, like where we wanted to live in the state when we moved back from New York, and a lot of that went into like we wanted decent schools because we wanted them
Right.
to be able to go to public school. So, and like I said, we think a lot about what we add to it. So
Right.
it's awesome. All right, so let's see. Do you guys want to talk more about unschooling or homeschooling? I guess you kind of do a combo. Once they get old enough and interested, it becomes more homeschooling like I would imagine, but that's my assumption. So I want to hear from you first.
Sure.
What
You want us to do the what society thinks,
Yes,
what
the
friends and family?
society thinks. Yes. And yes. Break it down.
Um, yeah, I mean, we can only speculate, right? Because we're
Yeah.
inside of it, so we can only say this is what we think society
Right,
thinks of
right.
us. We don't really know, right? Of uh, I think some portion of society thinks that we just don't think that our children need to learn anything, maybe, or um, that I'm not sure how to say it, that we are more willy-nilly about our children's
Mhm.
education. Like we're more
maybe value the structure or the like the level of detail that maybe they think might the traditional schooling system might provide. Like that doesn't happen in homeschools.
Right. It's more like free for all, like oh, they're
Right.
yeah,
just, they don't want to go by the rules.
right.
Lawless.
They
I
just
don't
want to
know.
play around and
Yeah.
yeah, and like and learn about nature and not really do academic work. I think.
And another thing I think sometimes is they don't think because it's that like standard, that expectation that everybody has. They think you're like not putting in as much thought for how your kids are learning. But it's like the
Mhm.
opposite to me. You're putting in way more thought than these other people. But I think sometimes that is like what's something that people
There's
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
There's the stereotype. There's a lot of stereotypes of homeschooled children. While there are many different ways to homeschool, let just bingo. um, the I think the most generalized uh, of the stereotypes for homeschooling, just as an umbrella, are that kids aren't caught up, right? They're not learning enough. They're not um, keeping up to the traditional curriculum.
right.
We hear this all the time from our parents
The
And
that they
family
are
yeah,
not
friend side. Yeah.
they're not socialized enough, right? Well, homeschool kids, that was always the first thing that my mom used to tell me when we talked about children who
Yeah.
were homeschooled. I remember her saying they don't get enough, they're kind of odd
Yeah.
around adults because they don't get enough interaction with other children. And then there was another stereotype that is common around homeschoolers, and then of course it's gone out of my head because
you have a coughing
I
baby
have a
in there.
coughing
But
baby.
again, it's like the effort. That amount of effort, like I feel like these people who don't put it, they just send their kids to school. They don't because they're not making that extra effort. They don't realize that you are doing it to socialize them, to get them out, to give them experiences and to, make it that equality level of schooling, but in your own, you know what I mean? Like make it meet meet the standard, but
Yeah.
because
Yeah. So I think what Becki was saying falls in line with what my friends and family think of public
yeah,
or of unschooling.
yeah,
And that's is that, especially with our parents' generation, right? Baby
yes,
boom and older, they still have that thing that they were always under the impression that
yeah,
homeschool children are socially awkward, right?
yes,
So that is one, but that is more one of, our parents' generation and
uh-huh,
older, um, which is, so that's part of what my family and friends think. Then I have friends, more people that are my age and younger, that
mm-hmm,
I don't know that they do have that concept because their parents said that to them, that
mm-hmm,
homeschool children are socially awkward. But I think that's going away and will be much less in the future. But as far as unschooling, there are still many people, friends and family, our age and younger included, that just don't understand what we're doing,
right,
and think that we're just kind of anti-education as a
mm-hmm,
whole, like that we don't you don't need to teach your children anything, kind of deal.
yeah,
Really, I think that what they do think, though, what society thinks about unschooling is when you tell them the definition, they're like, well, so you don't do school. And we're like, right, we don't do school. But the understanding that we have of unschooling, and again, we'll get more into this at another
yeah,
time, is that the kids will learn what they're ready to learn. Meanwhile, they think that when we say we're not doing school, that no learning is ever happening.
right.
So
That's
that's
so
just
untrue.
It was
Yeah.
more of the opposite of, instead of having a specific instruction period, we try to use life, and
Yes.
at every moment from when you wake up on a Sunday at 8 a.m.,
Uh-huh.
there's something to be learned, right?
Right.
To 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, there's something to be learned. To 11 on, you're like, there's
Mm-hmm.
always something to learn, and so we take that as our job to um, continuously be educating, I
Yeah,
guess, in a sense.
for real. All right. Well, that is awesome.
And
Okay.
then I guess
Yeah,
what
what
I think
you
of
think.
unschool,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I I'll try to give as broad and keep this as
Yeah.
broad as possible. I think that for me, unschooling seems to be the best way for our children to become who they are.
Okay. I like that.
And that to me is important, and it's one of the things, if not the main thing about
Mm-hmm.
unschooling, why I
And why
think
you
it's important,
picked it and like it. Okay. I
right?
like that. I like it. I like it. All right.
And what
Um,
about you,
yeah, what about
unschooling?
you, Beck? What do you think?
I will say I definitely was super uber hesitant and a non-believer in the beginning, very concerned of as an option. Like, wait, they're not going to learn to read until when? We're
Right.
not going to teach them math? What? But I think that honestly, it is allowing our children to flourish and blossom into their own personalities um, without any hindrance.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say as little hindrances as possible. I also think that unschooling is an amazing opportunity for our family to become as close as we have.
Oh, yeah.
We are very bonded, and my relationship, I think it speaks for itself. My relationship has changed significantly in the 4 months I've been laid off,
Mm-hmm.
um, that than it was to when I was working, and not able to be with them regularly, and for the better.
Right.
So it's a great opportunity for kids to learn at their own pace, to become who they're going to be, and for us to to be a really tight knit family.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. That was good. Oh, we were talking about like the age of unschooling and public schooling. If we were to like say to people, what do you think is like the older school? And some people might go with say public schooling. I feel like if you don't think too deep about it, they're like, well, that's the one that's been around. That's the one. But really, people have been unschooling since forever. Like that's what you did when you were back with the farm and there weren't any schools. You just taught your kids while you were working. Like they were with you all the time and they learned as you went through life. And so really the way you guys chose to be is like the oldest kind of teaching your kids possible and it's cool. You get to.
Right. Yeah, and I see it too. Like even, I mean, farming that goes to agriculture, which
Uh-huh.
is not even that long of a period in human history.
Right.
Go back before that to hunter gatherers, and it
Yes.
was the same thing, right? So
Right.
it was just you all you did was interact with the people around you, interacted with the people around you, your friends and family, and that's where you learned everything that you needed to learn from them, right? Even in
Yep.
hunter gatherer society. So
Okay, yeah. So we talked about the, how unschooling is like the age-old way that people did things. Um, let's see. I have a little bit. Public school was started, I looked this up, in the 1830s when a politician was advocating for schools to be universally available for children, free of charge and state funded. Now, it's always been like, not available to everyone. And really, they started doing it because they wanted to like teach kids to, be in society and I guess, and which one might be considered more popular these days. And I think that unschooling and homeschooling is kind of having like a whole
We're having a
thing,
breakthrough.
especially after COVID. Like a lot of people had to try it and were like, oh my gosh, this is like kind of a possibility. And maybe like more people got given the chance by not, their work situation changing. And so more, they were able to more. So I think it's kind of like a little resurgence, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah, we've heard a lot of our friends who have. I mean, I just ran into actually a friend from
oh yeah. Wow.
Eric's neighborhood the other day, and she said when the pandemic hit, it just was their opportunity. So while negative came
right. They
from
went for
it,
it.
a lot of people have now re-explored it. But I think that also it's becoming more popular because, especially in um, lower income areas where there's less funding for schools, that parents are becoming extremely frustrated with the ability of teachers and the high student teacher
Oh, yeah.
ratios and the limited resources that the school has, and just getting fed up in some
Yes.
ways. So I think that's probably got a bit to do with it too. And we're
For
seeing
real.
that, stories about that all over the country, not just in Maryland.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. All right. There's another thing. We're going quicker than I expected, but it's okay. We're gonna continue doing these, and we're gonna do lots of other topics about unschooling, like maybe really focus on that socialization, like how they socialize in public school versus what you guys do to intentionally make it happen. And we'll talk about like reading specifically and math specifically. We'll try and do like little episodes on each coming up. But as we continue to do this, I also want to share with like people that read on my blog, and I'm going to put it out there, some books that we like that you've read about. And I haven't read that many books on public schooling. I'm not going to lie. I need to go to the library and get some to like read up on it. But my one favorite book that I read last summer, or actually read it before last summer, it's called Homegrown. And it's by Ben Hewitt, and he unschooled his two boys on a farm in Vermont. And it was like magical. I loved that book,
Mm-hmm.
and it like made me ready for the summer because that's what I do with my kids in the summer. I teach them. I intentionally choose activities, and like keep them going with school through the summer. And I feel like I unschool during the summers, basically it. And that book was
Right.
really cool. So I'd love to hear some other books. I know, Eric, you are an avid reader. So any of your suggestions that we could add on um, for anybody who listens and wants to learn more.
Yeah, I definitely have John Holt, who is considered kind of the godfather of
Oh,
unschooling, maybe
yeah?
the creator of it. Yeah, his name is John Holt. And even though if you look at what unschooling is, like I said, it goes way back to right the
Right.
beginning of human.
Mm-hmm.
But John Holt more he like founded it more as the concept
Right.
of this is what you can do for your children for them to learn in a way that works for them versus traditional school.
Mm-hmm.
So anything by John Holt, which in the beginning he wrote How Children Fail and then How Children Learn. So they were two of the big ones, but anything by John Holt. And then my favorite, there are obviously many of them, but my favorite is Free to Learn by, oh boy, Peter Gray, I think his name
Okay.
I
is.
don't know how you two can remember an author of a book. I
Well,
mean,
I
I
have
could very
mine written down. I have mine written down. And you could, if you think if it's different later, well, I'll look it up. But if you think of any more and you want to send me a list, and then I can add them, I'll put I'll put your whole library of. Well, I'm sure you read all kinds of stuff when you were trying to pick how you're going to do it.
Yes, like
So
I do have,
that would be great to
yeah,
add in there for everybody our listeners that we're going to hopefully get.
I do, although I'm not the reader in the family, I do have one podcast
Oh yeah.
that I listen to now to the every now and then, and I follow her Instagram too, called Unschooling Mom2Mom.
That sounds cool.
I will just put a warning out there for people who are not unschoolers or homeschoolers. I do think that there's a little strong opinion towards unschooling from her.
Uh-huh.
So just trigger warning there. Because I have read a couple of posts myself and been like, well, I mean, that's a little aggressive, fighting for her opinions. But I do think that she has a lot of great people on her podcast that have like a range of experiences with unschooling, and she's just got a lot of really unique ideas, and I've enjoyed it so far.
That's cool. Well, it takes a passionate person to like really spearhead
Yeah.
that. So I would imagine she would be intense.
yeah, sense.
Um,
And
yeah.
it is Peter Gray, Free to Learn is the
Okay.
book. I just
Cool.
looked up
I
just to
got
make
it.
sure.
I wrote it
The
down.
the subtitle is Why Unleashing the Instinct to Play Will Make Our Children Learn.
Oh, I love it.
So the overall concept of the book that I love so much is just children learn by playing, and they learn by playing with other children that are of varying ages.
Yes.
So that is super helpful, and so it really for me kind of encapsulates all of unschooling and the joys and pleasures of it, and the freedom that you get from it, and that the children get from
Right.
it, and that it's really natural, but it's not the way our society is set up. So it's not necessarily easy to do, but it is natural for the children to learn that way.
For sure. That's the cool part about it for me is because that's what I want. I want to make another way for people to learn about teaching their kids. You don't have to just go with the flow, but you can, and like how you could make that flow easier for yourself, like going to public school or not. And, also the effort, like I said, I just don't think people realize the amount of effort that homeschooling and unschooling involves. And so I think it's going to be cool to show.
Yeah.